area of one realtors, the home building association, something areas, and the change of putting this together. There's going to be cards on your table. If anybody has any specific questions that are in, let them come by and grab those if you have any specific questions. I want to get into a little bit of why we're discussing housing today in particular. Central Jefferson Bank sponsor Elliot Eisenberg, an economist who came to Jeff City a few months ago. And in a recent blog, he gave some building statistics about the entire country. From 1976 to 79, we were building 418,000 houses per year. Moving to the 80s, that fell from 418 to 314,000 per year. In the 90s, that fell from 314 to 207,000 houses per year. In the 2000s, it fell from 207 to 150,000 houses per year. 2010s, and then after the 2010 to 2020 that we just had, we were only building 55,000 houses per year in our country. So we went from in the 70s and 80s, 300 to 400,000, now 2010 to 2020, 55,000 per year. So based on those statistics and what we know about Jefferson City's housing stock, that kind of falls in line with what we had. We've seen those numbers obviously drop decade over decade. You've also on your tables have a chart of Jeff City's population and its growth. And you can see that over the last 10 plus years, we've not been growing at a very high rate. As we continue to hear from our local employers, both public and private, filling jobs is the #1 concern. And a lack of housing being built actively for sale and available for rent makes these jobs even harder to fill. Another deterrent is the lack of workforce housing options. Employers that have good paying jobs simply are struggling to fill them because of the lack of availability. The tornado, of course, made we lost 150 rental units. We were disappointed with the outcome last year on 4 potential multifamily developments competing for MHDC funding. And I task all of you to go out there and look for a rental today and see the lack of availability. It is critical that we develop community support to address how we move forward on all kinds of housing in Jeff City. With that, I'd like to introduce Hank Vaught, a fellow realtor and former city councilman, who will be our moderator.
All right, I'm going to go over a few rules here, not very many, so don't get nervous. And then we'll start the questioning. All right, first rule is each candidate will be given 90 seconds. You may have been told 60 seconds. I think that was enough time to get some quality answers. So we'll be given 90 seconds to answer each question with the possibility of a follow-up question to clarify your original answer. There will be a timekeeper right on the front row to ensure that we stay on schedule. The moderator will reserve the right to alter questions as we proceed through a round to allow for more precise answers. If time allows, at the end of our planned questions, we will take questions from the audience. And by the way, there are some green note cards on the table. If anybody in the audience thinks of a question they'd like to ask, we'll have about 15 minutes at the end. A couple times throughout the forum, we'll have somebody come around and collect it. So just hold them up if you have a question. At the end of the forum, each candidate will be given 30 seconds for a closing statement. Please keep all answers on topic. Each round will alternate the order in which the candidates answer questions. Each candidate will be given 1 minute to introduce themselves and state why they are running for office. And David, we'll start with you.
Hank,
Yes.
out of fairness to the candidates, I want them to know that we're recording this for future use on Zoom. So just so you know that's being done. Thank you.
1 minute to introduce yourself and let us know why you're running.
All right, you like little bell start now or so my name is David Kimna. I am the current city council representative for Ward 1. I've been on the council for the last 3 terms of 6 years, and I'm vying for re-election for my final term. You can only serve up to 4 terms or 8 years total. Grew up on the East End, went to IC Elias, graduated from Lincoln. Recently, 10 years ago, I took a job at Central Bank. While there, former council member Larry Henry asked me to be his treasurer for one of his elections, so I agreed to do that. And kind of following from there, it kind of gave me the aspiration to being involved with city more. So I filed in 2017 to run for city council, was elected. Since then, I've served on various boards and commissions, been active with many of improvements that are going on the east side currently. And so at this point, I am up for reelection and vying for my last term. And so you have a minute. So let's work our next way down.
I'm Jeff Allers. I'm Dave's opponent here. I've known Dave and his family for a long time. Likewise, I've got married in 1990 to Jenny Lubert. We lived on the east side. Since then, we've lived in Jeff City. I grew up in Taos and went to St. Francis Xavier. I graduated from Blair Oaks High School. Worked for JC Industries, Jeff Low Quarries, Capital Concrete, all those places that are out of business now, built for the Adrian family. Right after I left Northeast Missouri State, Truman State, and did that for 7 years, and then switched careers to Central Dairy, where I've been there 31.5 years. Most recently, for the past several years, I've been the head ice cream guy that makes the ice cream, comes up with all this stuff. After 31.5 years, my body was starting to wear down. I had my shoulder done, my knee done, and so I'm calling it quits at the end of March, looking for going on another path, I would say. So I've served on several committees in Jeff City. I love where I live. We called the East Side our home since 1990 when we got married. My kids both moved here to Jeff City, back from the Springfield area after going to college, have a first grandchild. I love Jeff City. I love the small town atmosphere, especially the east side, the old, what I call the old Catholic families. I would like to see the improvements keep going. We need to work on infrastructure. And I know the topic of housing has come about. I can tell you that in the First Ward, I know of 4 houses being built only. And so, and 2 houses for sale that I saw driven down every street. So I look forward to getting to meet you, answer questions. And that's some of the rich stuff I want to work forward to when I'm elected on that first one.
Well, first off, I want to thank you all very much for having me today. My name is Aaron Mealy, and I'm running for Second Ward City Council. I graduated Blythe High School, went to Lincoln, and then transferred to the University of Missouri Columbia. I work for the Missouri Department of Natural Resources in the water program, where we make sure Missourians have adequate water that's safe to drink. I grew up in Jefferson City, and I have deep family roots in our community. Like Jeff, I love our town. I became inspired to be part of city government in the aftermath of the 2019 tornado. Like many, the first thing I wanted to do as a dust settle was get out and help anyone and everyone who needed it. I got my pickup, got displaced community members to move their homes and lives from the rubble. While out in the aftermath, I noticed city council members out in the street doing this same work, helping people, muddy, sweaty, and realized that that is the type of leader that this community deserves, and that's the type of leader that I would be. With my work experience, I see firsthand how infrastructure in communities can become outdated and disrepair with wrong leaders. You and all of Jefferson City deserve leaders that are reasonable. You deserve leaders that have cognitive clarity. You deserve leaders who understand technology and can help bring about innovation for our community. You deserve leaders who will listen to you. You deserve leaders who will grow the housing market. I represent all of these things, and that's why I'm running to represent Ward 2. Thank you.
I'm Edith Vogel, and I'm a native of Jefferson City. My roots run strong. I lived on St. Mary's Boulevard. I have lived on St. Mary's Boulevard in Ward 2, which I consider the hub of the city of Jefferson. My roots run strong. My family has been responsible for the nickname Mill Bottom because my great-great-grandfather was G.H. Dooley, who immigrated here from Germany in 1846 and established a mill and brickyard in the area down by the river. And in 1883, he donated 800,000 bricks to build the present St. Peter's Church. On the other side of my family, the south side, my roots run strong down there. In 1892, my grandfather Marshall immigrated to the United States from Miltenberg, Germany, and established a brewery on the south side. It's called Capital Brewery, and that's why I like to use the word hub, because one of the beers was Hub City beer. And that specifically has turned into the Jefferson City Coca-Cola Bottling Company, which I'm a proud owner with my nephew Jake and my sister Rose. And my nephews work there and I get to count the quarters that come out of Colt machines. They won't let me answer the phone because I'm too mouthy. And I had the distinct privilege of changing Ann Teeter's backs and diapers. And so I'm also Bernie Fecto there, fine son Andy. We also participate in the first CID district in Jefferson City on the south side, which is responsible for the owners of property down there to curb and gutter and take their tax dollars, add a little bit more, and do the repair work down there. We're almost completed with that, Andy. It's gonna be, our taxes are gonna come back down again soon. And I served on the city council from 99 to 2007. I enjoyed that. The time went fast. I'm still alive. I still have air in my lungs to do. And I feel like it's important that the city, yes, all these facts here, I see them, they're serious, but we have to take care of what we have first. And the economy is preventing everything from growing, I think. And I like the way that you presented us with these facts. So I am seeking the seat again in the hub, the second ward of the city of Jefferson, to serve you, the citizens, and definitely the citizens of my second ward. And one of my goals, if elected, is to get the Ohio Street Bridge reopened for the people that live up in the area, also in the second ward, Holly Drive, Darlene, Pamela, Montana, Indiana. Those little streets, they've been cut off from Jefferson City for the last couple of years. And I think if I can get elected, can persuade our other councilman and our new mayor, wherever he is today, he's down here, on the end, that we could get that done. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting all of us candidates to be here today. Look forward to your inquiry, however that goes. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Spencer, and I'd like to echo some of the previous comments. Thanking you all for allowing us to come and have a hopefully very good discussion of the housing issue that really faces us in the future. And it's really been plaguing us for a number of years, if not decades. I'm a retired firefighter from Jefferson City Fire Department. I'm retired as a fire captain. And I'm married to my wife, Tisha. We have a graphic design firm here in Jefferson City. It's been in business for over 25 years. I'm a member of Memorial Baptist Church for 28 years. Currently serve as a youth leader. I also have two daughters, two great young ladies who are strong, independent women. Both are a product of the public school system. My oldest is a first graduating class out of Capital City. And my youngest, she's a freshman in Capital City this year. Again, I look forward to having some really good discussions today on this housing issue, and appreciate your time.
Hi, I'm Trika Young, and I'm a candidate for Ward 3 with Scott. I'm in Jefferson City. I am not from Jefferson City. However, I've been here almost 40 years now. I did leave my flyer on the back to tell you a little bit more information about me. I came to Jefferson City in 1996 as a student at Lincoln University. I did graduate with a bachelor's and 2 master's degrees, and I am currently a doctoral candidate at the University of Missouri. I have spent the last 20 plus years serving in different leadership capacities here in Jefferson City. Most recently, I am on the board with Ann Bax. I'm on the board with Susan Cook Williams for Habitat. And I have had the privilege of seeing firsthand the impact of lack of housing here in Jefferson City, lack of representation here in Jefferson City. And I have a passion for being a voice for those who are voiceless, and I feel the need that I'm the person to do that. I'm happy to serve this community. I feel like I can do 2 things. I have 2 eyes, influence and impact. While my seat would be in 3rd Ward, I would definitely influence the whole Jefferson City, and I look forward to the chance of doing that with you.
Hello, my name is Alicia Edwards. I'm the 5th Ward candidate for City Council. I am a Jeff City High School graduate. I'm a cosmetologist, first job. My second job, I'm the executive director of Building Community Bridges, it's a nonprofit that was started grassroots about 5 years ago here in Jefferson City. I also sit on the Minority Business Task Force that's provided by the chambers, the Jefferson City Housing Task Force and Jeff City Parks and Rec Commission. My goal on city council is to be able to be that voice to people like Teresa said that are underserved. I deal day in and day out, not only with personal experiences, but with other people that are experiencing homelessness and lack of resources and lack of support. And I'm really big on small businesses because I am a cosmetologist and I work for myself, and being able to help people establish small business well, and open those doors for them and just help the economy of Jefferson City grow, because we have not grown and 60% of the working force here are commuters. So housing is one thing that I like to tackle as well as the city council candidate.
My name is Mark Schwartz. I'm the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Missouri Behavioral Health Council. Essentially what that means is we advocate at the state capitol and for the federal government for funding for folks with severe mental illness and substance use disorder. So that's my day job. I'm married to Danielle Schwartz, who owns and operates Day Solutions Corporation, which is an adult daycare for adults with disabilities. So that's kind of been our combined passion over the last 6 or 8 years that has been in the area of mental health and mental health advocacy. I'm 47 years old. I've lived in Jeff City my entire life outside of a small move to Columbia for what was supposed to be 4 years. It ended up being 5. Came back, got my master's degree at Lincoln University. Started work at the state capitol in 1998, doing various different jobs, mainly around the area of appropriations and budget. So that's kind of got me to where I am now, advocating for those things. Why I'm running, I think the sheet kind of sums up why any of it can be running. Our population is stagnant. We're losing people. Our housing is a mess. We've actually lost jobs in this city over the last 2 years, which is incredible, being we have some of the lowest unemployment in history. And I think all those things require a new brand of leadership in the city, and I hope to be part of the team that brings that.
My name is Ron Fitzwater. I'm a candidate for mayor. I currently serve as one of the Ward 4 councilmen here in Jefferson City. I've been in that position for 6 years. My wife Karen and I moved to Jefferson City back in 2002. This is the first place we'd moved to that we didn't have kids in school, so kind of forced us to get out in the community and get involved. We do have 3 children. Our oldest son is in sales. He has 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. Our second son, Travis, works a little bit at the association, is also a state legislator, and he and his wife Amy have 3 girls. And then our daughter lives in Florida. She has 3 boys and a girl, and she works at a school down there. We fell in love with this community when we moved here. I moved here to take the position as the CEO of the Missouri Pharmacy Association, so that's where I spend my days. Spend a lot of time in the Capitol and get the privilege of working with the senator every once in a while on some pharmacy issues. But being on city council, I just fell in love with the opportunities to serve this community and the things that we had an opportunity to work on. When I got onto council, one of the things I was focused on was a convention center for this community and facilities to bring and continue to draw people. But my 3 priority projects were public works, or public safety, and we have spent a lot of time working with our police and fire. I think the public safety tax has helped us to be able to begin to bring those salaries in line with communities around us and attract quality people to our public safety environment. So, yeah, I think after 6 years, that continues to be a priority for many of us at the table. The second is infrastructure, and that's a fairly broad category. I currently serve as chair of the Public Works Committee, and we get involved in anything from potholes and working on the roads and fixing the roads to looking at priority projects like Monroe Street, the viaduct, and a lot of other projects around town, parking or lack thereof, and issues that we need to address there. And thank you.
Ron, we'll start with you on the first question. Okay. You have 90 seconds. All right. In your opinion, why has Jefferson City not grown, and do you think we should be trying to grow?
I absolutely think that we should be trying to grow. I mean, this, as indicated, this chart frustrates me considerably. I think there are a host of reasons. I think probably City Hall is one of the reasons. I mean, we've got to retool what we do as a city government and do a more effective job in working with people that want to help this city grow. City government does not create jobs, but we create the environment for others to create jobs. And I think we have got to do a better job of both working with organizations and companies that are currently here. Certainly, we have the luxury of state government, which brings employment to our community. We've got a university that seems like it's done a 180 and is really headed in the right direction. They employ a lot of individuals. So I think our role in city government is to create an environment where our city can grow. And, you know, I know housing is a critical part of that, component of that, and we've got to work as a community on how we address that issue. But my focus will be on trying to bring the community together to address these critical issues.
You want me to repeat it? All right. In your opinion, why has Jefferson City not grown, and do you think we should be trying to grow?
Well, I agree with Ron. Absolutely. I think any city's job or goal should be to grow. I think that's just kind of why you have communities, in order to attract the best and brightest and highest paying jobs you can possibly attract to a community. I think part of the reason why our population has been relatively stagnant, I think some of it has to do with the state government reducing the amount of state employees we have. There's been a significant push over the past 15 to 20 years to decrease the amount of state employees in this state, and I think that's had a detrimental effect on our cities. I also think that, you know, we don't have necessary products and incentives to draw in new, sustained, higher paying jobs where folks will live here, spend their money here, and create a family here. So I think as a candidate, I'm interested in learning a lot more, especially from you all, on things we can use, whether it's community development block grants, some NDHC stuff, in order just to get us the housing we need, the infrastructure we need to grow out of this.
I believe a big problem with growth in Jefferson City is because as people as the people that already live here mature, go through the school systems, graduate from high school, maybe even go to college or community college here, there is not enough things or resources to keep them here. I believe that we should definitely build up some attractions and show all the nice things that Jefferson City has, the beautiful communities that are historic. We need to advertise that. Parks and Rec is doing a phenomenal job of making sure that we have beautiful green spaces and places outdoors. We need to advertise that as well. We need to be more proactive in advertising everything that's beautiful about Jeff City to make people want to stay here or to bring their businesses here. And then we need to also give opportunity for business growth, for small business growth. There needs to be more funding available. There needs to be more outlets of resources, things like community development block grants. They do have opportunities for home buyers and things like that. So just making the public aware that Jefferson City provides these different opportunities, and then giving some advertisement to all the wonderful things they have to attract more to Jefferson.
Thank you. I agree with what everyone said about the attraction. People are here, people are coming here. We have different revenues and avenues of how to get here, whether it be state government, Link University, which is a big draw, but retaining them here is the problem, and I think that is due to lack of activities here that would keep them here, especially for our younger population. I don't feel that representation here, they don't feel connected. We are a very diverse community here, and I don't think when they go out into the community, they leave Link University campus, they leave different events here in the community, they don't see what themselves. And so they don't feel an attachment, and so therefore they don't feel drawn to stay. That's one of the things I want to represent, and I'm encouraging people to do, come out and figure out how to get involved in Jefferson City so that we as a group can move Jefferson City. But the funding, the housing expansion and all those things are concerns.
You know, it really just, quite frankly, hadn't been a priority. I've been on council for 2 years. We've not once had an annexation committee meeting. That's a council as a whole. So it's really a lack of vision, a lack of direction, and a lack of commitment. And so, you know, since I've been a firefighter, I've always advocated for city growth. Because I think there's a lot that the city offers to potential areas that are not incorporated in the city. Better police and fire protection, better codes, sewer. There's a lot of services that the city can provide in these areas. But I think what's being coming to the forefront is that you all, realtors, a lot of our business community has echoed that we are dying, we are stagnant. And, you know, with that, there's a lot of us that can bring some solutions to that. And it just can't be the city. The city has to lead that effort, but we also have to invite other people to come in and help us, you know, with a broad growth plan. And that's what I'll be advocating for the next 2 years for re-elected on the third ward.
I take a different approach to the question in regards to why I think the city is not growing. I think it's because some people want the personal responsibility of not living in the city. They want to venture out into what we have to call Cole County, which is part of our whole metropolitan. I'll use the word metropolitan here loosely, but I see it as they choose not to live in the city because they have that right. So I think the aging of our population has a lot to do with it. And families are a lot smaller. And, you know, maybe we need to think reverse it wise and say, let's just say that the people that live here, like me, I choose to live here because I enjoy it. And as I said in my statement, my opening statement, my roots run deep here. And I have a lot of respect for the way things are done. But yet on the other hand, I think some of the other people that are in our area, they don't like rules and regulations. So that's why they choose to go live outside the area, but they know they have to come into Jefferson City to work. And so when they do that, they are in our city limits to use our fire department, our police department when they're here. And so I just look at it differently. You know, what the answer is to making it better, I think you have to, like Ron said, we need to change some things in City Hall to make it easier and better for the building trade, the Chamber of Commerce, all the people that are gathered today here. You know, we need to take care of what we have and improve our city infrastructurally wise. So it still stays a safe capital city.
Aaron? Yeah. So I think that there have been elected officials around for a while who have had an opportunity to address housing needs in our community and growth. And to your question, I absolutely support growth in our community. So let's think about any time we travel. When we travel and we see a city that's well maintained, they have great parks and recreation opportunities, and they typically have great schools. I think those are big components of growth, you know, that we need for growth in Jefferson City. I think one of the pieces is, you know, if I'm running a big employer here in Jefferson City and I can't find housing for my workforce, then I'm likely not to encourage other big employers to join our community. That's a piece of growing our community, is growing our employers and then, you know, having an adequate workforce. So I also strongly believe, I get pretty excited with this, is growth through tourism. We have a historic, beautiful town, as other folks have said, and I constantly am smiling when I'm talking to folks about Jefferson City, and come visit us, bring your family here. We have great new opportunities in parks for your families, you know, an active transportation plan that the city is working on now to connect different parks and activities for families. So those are my thoughts on growth, and growth will certainly be a top priority of mine. Thank you.
Thanks. I just want to reiterate some things Ron said and Edie said. So someone who came in from Taos, growing up in Taos, living out in the county into Jeff City. And who works with everybody from everywhere at Central Dairy. There's, what Edie said, there's a lot of people who want to live out in the county, who don't want to pay the city tax, the whatever the 2% difference that may be, not. They like to commute back and forth to Jeff City. They also like the Borough School District and some of the surrounding school districts that were smaller back then when I grew up. And there was trouble back in Jeff City High School area, and I think it has changed around recently. I think Superintendent McGraw has a positive outbeat vision for Jeff City High Schools and the schools in general. The early childhood development thing coming into the east side will be, I think, a plus for houses being built, people wanting to move back in Jeff City. There are opportunities out there. There are certain tracts of land on the east. I'm just going to speak from the first ward side, that there's a 49-acre development out there that could be bought and done to see how that is used. Aging population. I only have 2 kids. They've moved back. There's no single family member there. Baby boomers retire. Those state jobs are open. They're looking for people. So we kind of had to hit the tornado, the pandemic, and high interest rates all at one time. So it's going to take some ideas from the realtors and developers, the city government as a whole. How do we speed up? How do we streamline processes? How do we get people on board for a positive view of Jeff City and a positive growth initiative of Jeff City, and make sure that everybody at the city hall knows, hey, this is going to be a positive thing. We want you involved. We want you to be part of a winning team here. So I look forward to bringing that to as a candidate and as if elected to the city council. Thank you.
David?
Can you repeat the question one more time, please?
Sure. In your opinion, why has Jefferson City not grown, and do you think we should be trying to grow?
So for the second part, yes, I do that. And, you know, when I was first elected, you know, some of these same topics came up, and, you know, you got to ask yourself, what's going to attract people to this community and want to live here? And I think a lot of people have hit on several of those. I mean, you look at healthcare. I think we're making improvements within our healthcare in this community. Schools, I think we've made some progress with our schools, especially with the second high school that was on the ballot while I was first elected. Jobs, there's quality jobs that are here, and amenities that were hit on. You know, you look at our parks. I mean, we got to work on our transportation a little bit better. We're hurting on that with that. So I think we're making progress with a lot of things that would potentially bring people into Jefferson City. I think right now we're at a critical need for our housing, and I think that is one of the key factors of why we're not growing at the present moment. You know, a few years ago, the tornado took out a lot of affordable housing, and we're looking to recover from that. So you look at that aging population, what's going to attract people here? I think we do need to address housing. What's going to have young professionals want to stay here? I look forward to that. So I think our housing is a very serious topic to leave those to stay.
Okay. All right, second question, we're going to start with Preco and work our way around. So we'll be the last thing. All right, here's the question. Area employers' number one concern, we kind of touched on this in some of your answers. Area employers' number one concern is filling jobs. But according to them, they are having difficulty partly due to the lack of workforce housing options. What specific leadership would you provide as a member of the city council that fosters growth in housing and population, which in turn generates economic development? Sorry for all the work.
I've been fortunate enough in the last couple of months to have a seat at the table with several managers in organizations such as Plastics. Because I want to hear firsthand what was the issue and how did they connect that to lack of housing here in Jefferson City. And they all agree, just what you said, that it is stopping them from expanding them. It's put a barrier in the way that they are able to expand on their employment and their hiring process. I've met with people who attempted to move to Jefferson City, and one of the things that they faced was the inability to find affordable housing. Everyone cannot come in and be a homeowner. So how do we get them, and who would I bring to the table? I would bring those people who are most affected, those companies most affected to the table. I would bring companies like Habitat to the table, United Way to the table, because they hear firsthand of the issues that we are having with our housing and being able to expand. So those are the people I would bring to the table. And we would look and strategize ways in which we could be most effective in a quick way and expanding our housing population.
Alicia? I can repeat it each time if you want to. I know it's a lengthy question. You want me to repeat it?
Yeah.
Okay. Our area employers' number one concern is filling jobs, but according to them, they are having difficulty partly due to the lack of workforce housing options. What specific leadership would you provide as a member of city council that fosters growth in housing and population, which in turn generates economic development?
Well, I currently sit on the Jefferson City Housing Task Force, along with Susan Randolph. And last year fall, she hosted a beautiful conference that invited a lot of realtors, a lot of city officials, to put them all in the same room and learn about why we're not having the affordable housing that we need here. And I think that one of the biggest issues and one of the biggest reasons why it was voted down when the initiative for the redevelopment came is that people don't have an understanding of what affordable housing is. That's why it's been recoined as workforce housing, because affordable housing is anybody that is making a livable wage. And most of the jobs here are not making a livable wage. So most people need affordable housing. And so being able to provide that kind of structure over in these 3 different areas that were brought to the table is viable because they're located in areas where large industries like Scholastic, like Unilever are at. So being able to bring them to the table, the city to the table, maybe Susan can host another conference and bringing all these people to the table and rediscussing what affordable housing is and kind of breaking that down a little more, and even bringing in some citizens that don't agree with bringing in affordable housing to coin workforce housing and make that be something that's supported for the community so that we can get this up and going.
Area employers' number one concern is filling jobs, but according to them, they are having difficulty partly due to the lack of workforce housing options. What specific leadership would you provide as a member of city council that fosters growth in housing and population, which in turn generates economic development?
So I'm just gonna start by saying I spent the last two days, you must think I'm an incredibly boring person, but I read the housing report that was done by RKG, and I was really interested, and I'm just gonna read what they put, I'm just gonna quote it, because this was really interesting to me. It says, the city already has a number of programs designed to help home buyers, developers, and renters, and also has a number of local organizations and programs working to improve its neighborhoods and infrastructure. So what that tells me is we have programs in place now, according to this group, that either we haven't been using or we haven't been using correctly. And to me, that's just a failure in leadership. And so what I think we need to do, and what I aim to find out when I'm elected, is how much we've been working with our state partners in social services and health and human services, or EHSS, and even mental health with regards to residential housing, and what we can do with the federal government in order to get subsidies that will help our local not-for-profits help us fix this problem. But I think that we have the means in place. We got to figure out how to use them better, according to the report.
Well, and I appreciate the answers so far. You know, I think my responsibility is I get back. First, we've got to get City Hall out of the way. We don't create housing, but we can create the environment to make sure that housing happens. And I think that the comments that were made in regards to having programs in place. So I think things we can do at City Hall are looking at our permitting process and how we work with developers and folks that can bring the housing to our community. I know we put some of that online now. Hopefully it is beginning to work. I know we've got some kinks, but we need a whole new change in philosophy of how we address these issues. I think the Housing Task Force that was referred to has done a great job in putting together some documents. I went through that report also. There's a lot of information in there, but it talks more than just about workforce housing. It talks about a broad range of housing issues in our community. And my goal and what I anticipate doing is putting together a high-level task force of decision makers that can come in and take the documents that have been presented and hopefully take it out and help it make it happen in our community. Nobody disagrees that we do not have a housing problem, but we've got to take a different approach if we're going to solve it.
Davis?
Yeah, I mean, currently, I think we have a few task forces that are currently having these discussions. And I think we need to continue healthy conversations with not just staff and officials, but you need, county officials. I think you need to get home builders, you need to get contractors, even surrounding counties that are dealing with this, continuing conversations with them on their needs and how we can work together to do that. We currently have disaster relief funds on the table that haven't been tapped into, that we could look into, and I think even being supportive when the opportunities come for housing in this community. So I mean, I think those are all things that I would look to do as going forward. Also with just the land that's available. I mean, we could look at the city staff to see if we can't rezone certain sections of the city to allow for other types of housing or multifamily housing. I think that's on the table. To try to encourage that to come to this community. But I mean, I think there's a lot of things that we can do as a unit to come together for an agreement on how we can move forward.
I'll agree with, like Mark and Ron on the way as a city council person should be doing. I think that what we can do is, or what we should be doing is making it easier for the process of when an application comes through there. That we're not, there's a roadblock here. If one person was assigned that project at City Hall, they see that project through so that the developer calls them, hey, I've got this all set up. Am I good to go? Not pass around to another department. So if everything is checked off, as a developer, hey, I'm running a little problem here. I call that one person, maybe to be able to streamline it, to get it going faster. Whatever it takes. There's some people have talked about that the biggest obstacle right now is the City Hall on getting things done, because they seem like they're getting jerked around, having to do this, having to call this, and not being able to get this thing going off the ground. The parts that were Betty Bisher and all that were the deal with that whole mess. I think there's some great opportunities there with maybe townhouse type things into that overlay district of the historic things. There's probably developers that are, hey, I love this area too. I want to build it back. How do we get them going faster into that? What will we sit down as a city council? Hey, how can we get? I'm gonna throw a name out there just to throw it because I know the gentleman Ron Dawson, because I saw the signs and what he's doing up there. And if he's got problems, how can we get? If he's interested in this, how do we move it faster? How can we get going? That's our elected position. What we should be doing to help Jeff City. And then working with the school districts and all that. Hey, the workforce is here. We need to get people in here. Are you able to pivot? What if it's tax abatements, whatever, if there are solutions out there, Ron should lead with the group, like you said, a high level group of people. Hey, these are some of the options. Are we all on board? Is the team, everybody got a little skin in the game to where they're saying, yeah, I can do this, I'll do that, and so those are the meetings that the city council should have to help you all out to build, to develop.
So I think I heard somebody say it, high level decision making. That's important. So when you think about who you're electing as your city representative, you need people who understand technology, potentially work with engineers like I do in PNR. People who understand how cities operate, people who understand how infrastructure is completed. Those are things that you need in city leaders. Another piece of housing is, a crucial part of the development is public engagement. I feel like what we went through in 2022 had missing pieces of public engagement. I think about NIMBY and media comes to mind. Maybe we would have had more opportunities to, through media streams, present to folks what was happening. I was strictly discouraged to, not be able to be a part of conversations of concerns of folks because they went, they circumvented and went right to the state. If my neighbor might have a concern about a project, then I want to hear it and I want to work with them. We're all up here talking about the same problem, but I think communication is key. We have to come together as a community to communicate and grow our town. So thank you.
Man, you're gonna have to repeat it.
Area employers' number one concern is filling jobs. But according to them, they are having difficulty partly due to the lack of workforce housing options. What specific leadership would you provide as a member of city council that fosters growth in housing and population, which in turn generates economic development?
First of all, I think it's a very important that two things that come to mind is personal responsibility and private development are important. And I think I can just ditto from that end of the panel discussion to this end, that I'm the last person up here to give a educated guess of who's going to solve this. But if I serve on a city council, all of those points of discussion have to be done and then presented to the elected officials. But once again, I still say, the whole crutch of the matter is personal responsibility on people that live and want to live in affordable housing and or move into something different. Housing is important to everybody. I'm not fibbing about that, but you got the personal responsibility and then what was my other word that I was trying to think of? Private development. Complicated mess. And right now in our country and all over the United States, every area is faced with these kind of difficulties because of inflation and a possible recession. Every day you wake up and listen to the radio and it says, we're going to have a recession. So I don't know if that's true or not, but serious stuff ahead of us.
I think what we really have to understand is that every entity in our community, whether it be city or county government, state government, federal government, our industry, our business community, our education partners, local public school education, higher education, Lincoln University, and even the homeowners themselves, we all have a responsibility to communicate and understand issues that are before us. And, I think that was some of the failure of the previous of what happened with those MHDC projects, is that people didn't have an opportunity to feel like their voices were going to be heard. And I think that's important. I think we also, it's a balanced approach. We have to protect the biggest asset and investment that a lot of us have in this room, and that is our homes. And so there's a lot of moving parts to this issue. But you got to implement a growth program for the city of Jefferson. Because if we can get more property available, we can build and develop multifamily homes. And then we can infill with single family residential homes. Because then that gives the homeowners that decision. They made that choice to buy those homes next to multifamily developments. And you just have a lot of fear that the property values are going to go down. And those are real fears. Those aren't made up. And so we've got to have a broad discussion with a lot of entities that are already in this community. And I have plenty of faith in all those individuals and people that we're going to get this solved. It's not isolated to Jefferson City, it's all over the country. And so I'm committed to having those tough discussions, and I'm committed to getting this problem solved. But it's going to take a lot of people around the table to do that.
Okay, just for a reminder, if you have any questions on your green card, hold them up. Donna or someone will come around and pick them up and ask you forward. I'm not gonna say we have time for all of them. Okay, fine. All right, David, we're gonna start with you and come back down the table again. Would you favor the city relaxing some regulations and guidelines to incentivize development, whether it be single family housing, multifamily housing, and or other development? If so, what would those changes look like?
Repeat again.
Okay. Would you favor the city relaxing some regulations and guidelines to incentivize development, whether it be single family residence, multifamily, or other development? And if so, what would those changes look like?
I mean, yes, I would. I'd be in favor of that for all types of housing. I think, I'm not a code person. I don't know much about the code aspect of it, but I think getting home builders, contractors at the table to see, you know, how are we operating out in the county that we could maybe implement into the city to streamline, building housing. What are some of the other avenues as far as education that we can use to maybe combine, some of the staff to work together to kind of, expedite some of the paperwork that's going along that may be frustrating for people. But I mean, yes. I mean, I think there's a lot of different avenues of that on how you can maybe streamline some of that. So I think it starts with just getting contractors, developers at the table, with city staff, bringing county and maybe state officials together to say like, hey, here's how things are happening throughout the state. How can we embrace those? We have a new city planner coming down from Columbia, and I know that they put up a lot of housing, so picking his brain and how he can, help implement how we can do it. And like I said before, looking at our zoning code, how we can address that to encourage not just single family housing, but multi-family housing throughout the city, and I think there's places that are limiting it just because of the zoning. So I think we need to, embrace the hard discussions on what that looks like. So.
Thank you. Things I look at is, as an elected official, it is just echoing what Dave said. Yeah, we need to look at every regulation and issue as what is slowing, what is keeping you guys from getting started early, getting shovels in the ground. And it would take more than just a city council meeting. I would hope as Mayor Ron would see this and we'd have other meetings throughout the week about it. That would bring the developers, real estate people together, and say, okay, well, what are the things that are slowing us down? Why are we not getting things done? Bad thing is what Edie said is high interest rates, the economy, hearing that recession every day has got people a little skittish. Do we do this? Do we develop it? I mean, is this, how many years down the road are we looking at it? I will tell you from Central Dairy's perspective is, we had one application come in for a job down there that we used to get hundreds of. So you have everybody now kind of raise their rates of touching everybody up this way. So we're kind of seeing a movement across, hey, we get one here, bunch of them over there just to try things out. I am a big proponent of getting out of your way, letting you all do the things you all do good at and know what it is. And then you're working with the city staff and say, this is how we're going to move forward. No matter what housing project it is. How do we help you get going? That's how it should be from the city standpoint.
Aaron?
Yep. I guess I'll start with a real-time local example that I had. So a business owner recently came to me and was telling me how two different pieces of city government came to a property they bought to do their individual inspections. And they came on different days and then maybe had to cancel once. And so it just started making me think, well, maybe we can streamline some of these city agencies to where, the business owner is less impacted if they can get everything done at one time. I think that'd be really helpful to businesses. As far as relaxing guidelines, certainly if there is something hindering a business or growth in our city, I'm all about looking at that. I mean, I think it needs to be, again, well-educated people making high quality decisions on this stuff. You know, we don't want to relax a guideline in our community that would end up hurting somebody else next door, that would, or would end up putting a child or a family in a dangerous position. So, those are decisions that need to be critiqued well. You know, if we look back to 2022, we saw a lot of projects were proposed in areas that were already zoned appropriately. So we didn't have a lot of builders coming to the city saying, you know, they're running into problems. These were zoned appropriately and ready for the type of housing that were proposed. They were also good areas to develop. You know, I think this is a little off subject, but I just want to say that quality housing options should blend well with transportation services, parks, and other opportunities for families in our community. Thank you.
Thanks. Edith?
Just start it off again with a question, please.
Sure. Would you favor the city relaxing some regulations and guidelines?
Morgan, okay. I'm a big proponent of, a little document that's called our city charter. And I think sometimes, elected officials, past, present, and future, might not understand the makeup of the charter. And one of the first sentences in it is, the power is vested in the city council. And I see it from the time I served years ago, that's kind of been flipped to where we now have a city staff who I think, and it might be just rumors or make up stuff, but I don't think it is, where the council should be directing them to the situation that's at hand in regards to a decision-making process on the council's part. And I feel like sometimes that the council, past, present, and future, might slack off on that. And the staff then take the opportunity to dictate to the council what they feel needs to be done. And as I said, I am a proponent of the city charter. And I feel like that the decision-making process of action taken by the staff, their job is to give the information to the council and they make the decision. And I see that those are coming into play in regards to the some of the difficulty that the developers might have in order to place their ideas to get the city to give permits and ability to develop future housing, any kind of housing, any kind of development in our city. But as I go back to my original thought process, the last question, some people just don't want to live in the city and they're going to choose to live in our county or even outside our county. And I don't think there's anything any elected official can do about that. You know, it's a natural occurrence of people's desire of what they want out of the government. And sometimes the government gets in the way. So they have to be the final decision maker of what they want in their life in regards to housing and their jobs and things of that nature.
Yeah, I think we can and we should open and loosen up zoning restrictions. That can have an immediate impact on this issue. I've led the effort of establishing a citizens committee to review the effectiveness and efficiency processes that's going on currently in City Hall. And hope to have that pass on the council come with the RFP this week, our next council meeting. I've talked with builders and developers extensively, and they say that our processes need some immediate help. The permitting process, the plan review process is too long. It's taken anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks to get a plan review. And I think what we all understand is that the foundation of our development program, that's not me, the foundation of that is our code, the code that we pass as a city council. So that should be the foundation of when any development is brought to the city. As long as it needs code, it needs to get fleshed out immediately And so that it can be permitted and processed and start these developments as efficient and effective as we possibly can. So yes, there's a lot of areas that we can do to address the code and the zoning restrictions that we currently have.
The question, would I be in favor of relaxing guidelines? My experience as a community leader and as a trained leader in my doctoral program is leadership. So one of the consistent messages in both my experience and my education as a leader has told me that, yeah, leaders should make the leader should be the one making the last decision and the best decision for those in which you serve. However, how do you know that without letting the people you serve guide you? So, yeah, the answer should fall on city council. And if that means we put the stakeholders at the tables, we put the community builders at the tables, we bring citizens to the tables, those who are for and those who are against, and we hear both views. And with educating us on the needs of those guidelines and how they're impeding our ability to move forward. Based on that, that's where the guidelines should be considered to be relaxed if the risk does not outweigh the good. And so when that happens, I am in favor of relaxing guidelines, if that means moving this community forward. Yes.
What she said. I totally agree with what Shrika said. It comes down to the leadership. If relaxing the guidelines would move us forward and not hurt us, then yes, relax them. If it's going to be something that overall will cripple us, then maybe we should reconsider how those are being relaxed or revisit the guidelines themselves. Or do all of these things need to be in place? Can we work hand in hand with that developer? I believe Jeff or Aaron was saying, can we have that single individual work with that developer? But then we go back to staffing. If staffing is being decreased or if they don't have a livable wage, how do we hire more staff to be able to work hand in hand with that developer? And one thing that I don't know exactly how it works, I've done some research on it, and I believe Springfield, when they had that tornado, or was it Branson, Springfield or Branson? Joplin had a tornado several years ago, and they established something called a land trust. So if there's a lot of people that are concerned with the residents' responsibility in the property, or if there's going to be ghettos built in their backyards, maybe if we did something like a land trust, where the city governs the land, but leases it to that tenant or that developer for a period amount of time, then maybe that will calm those nerves of people thinking that their property value is going to decline.
First off, I'm just fine with relaxing guidelines and regulations across the entire spectrum of government, not just for housing. I believe that the overarching big hand of government imposes its weight on way too many things in our lives. So that's just not 2 cents on regulation in general. I think, as bad as COVID was, I think one of the things we saw during the pandemic, when it was starting to abate, was of all these things that were loosened up during COVID to help everybody go about their lives a little better, mainly in the healthcare field, where we saw the use of telehealth increase however many fold, and now it's become an everyday deal that we use. I think the same thing can go about with housing and many other government programs. However, with saying that, we can't have the Wild West, so there still needs to be code enforcement. I've been hearing from some of the currently elected officials that permitting times have become issues. I think we need to investigate that from a city perspective. And then going back to the study that I referenced earlier, the number one strategy under rehab and preservation was simply zoning relaxation that inhibits growth. So even the study specifically says, this is what we need to be doing. I fully agree with that. I think we need to look at other different things like loan forgiveness programs and land banking and things like that. So,
Ron?
Yes, I would support it. I mean, clearly what we're doing now is not working. We've got to figure out, and again, if you look at this chart, we're stagnant. Communities around us are growing, our state is growing, which means not only are we stagnant, we're going backwards. And again, I think it's been referred to down the table, it is City Hall and the leadership, and we need to take the leadership in making this happen for our community. So I think everything is on the table as we look at what do we need to do. I mean, I agree, I mean, there are limits and things, but we are more regulated than we have ever been. And as I talk to developers, again, I mean, what they see in other communities versus what they see here, there's just a difference. And we've got to take a look at things across the board to help our community grow. So I think there are opportunities, but it all depends on leadership, having ideas. We've got a great work staff at City Hall, but they need leadership. Nature affords a vacuum, and if we're not providing it, then they're going to provide it themselves. So I mean, we've got to take control back and show how this community can grow.
Okay. This is our final plan question, so if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, hold them up again, or if you have any new ones, and we'll collect them. Okay, so the last question that we had, and then we'll go to some public questions. Scott, we're gonna start with you and work our way around this way.
Are you confused?
All right, okay. The city of Jefferson has a reputation and a recent track record demonstrating missed opportunities when it comes to increasing affordable or workforce housing in our community. How do we become a city that is interested in growing in ways that benefit the entire community, not just self-interest? In other words, how do we eliminate the not in my backyard attitude? So what happened in the past with proposed developments doesn't happen again. And I will tell you that this takes in about 3 other questions that were asked from the audience, so there's interest in this, so if you need me to repeat it, I will.
No, I think I understand the general sense of it. I think it's based on our communication. And I think if we're an open and transparent process that people feel that they're comfortable with coming and sharing their concerns, whether it be to the elected officials or whether it be to departments of the city, I think they should have that right. You know, that shouldn't be an overriding factor in how we proceed and grow the community, but I think it should be taken into consideration. And so again, you know, the failure of those proposals was it was just dropped in our lap. And I'm not going to make a rash decision. When I was getting phone calls from school board members, calls from the school district, getting calls from wards that I don't even represent. We could have taken some time. We didn't have to rush that thing out that night. And we should have taken the time, because I really believe we could have gotten 2 or 3 more votes in support of those proposals. But I'm no longer looking backwards. I want to look forwards to that, to how we can move on and not make those mistakes again. And again, I think it's just based on communication. We've got to communicate better, and we've got to let people have an opportunity to share their concerns, so that, and we address those concerns, we answer those questions, so that we're all moving forward in the same direction. And I think we can do that. And I look forward to, again, being a part of that process, because it's something that obviously our community needs. And so.
Okay, I feel like that, in that situation of, I agree with Scott. I think there was a lack of communication, not only to half of the council or the citizens or the neighbors who, might have been around those 3 proposed areas. I don't know. I just know what I read in the paper, and I did attend the meeting personally, and I just felt like everybody had heart and soul in what they were trying to do. But I have to agree, to me, it seemed like there was a lack of communication totally, even though from the beginning, as I understood it, all of the properties involved were zoned already correctly. So there wasn't a decision to be made by the council in regards to rezoning something in order to build the 3 proposed projects. So once again, I just feel like, you know, yes, housing is very important, but I agree with Scott, it's something was lacking there on communication.
Well, I think I can help with the communication piece, you know. There are candidates that wrote letters in opposition to the Missouri Housing Development Commission in August. A month before the decision, the resolution was introduced to city council just to say we're okay with these projects. I would encourage everyone to go out and read the letters of support and the letters of opposition for these housing projects. Some of them are sad, some of them make you, kind of, your heart kind of turn for your community. But the letters of support were great. Let me just give a few. Polk County Commissioners, JC Regional Economic Partnership, Chamber of Commerce, Ameren, Compass Health, Jefferson Bank, Scholastic, United Way, JC Area Board of Realtors, Central Bank, Capital Region Medical Center, DeVille Properties, Beckhill Beverage, Hawthorne Bank, Home Builders Association, Hitachi, Jefferson West Property or Apartments, and Cove Property. I read those off to just, maybe everybody is aware, but there was a lot of support for housing in Jefferson City. So I think there will be a lot of support moving forward. I agree with some of the comments made that there is a better way to communicate, but we can't blame it solely on communication when folks had, in my mind, ample time to read and understand what was going on. One of my favorite pieces of these developments is they were, in part being developed by local contractors. Some of the developers were gonna have playgrounds for children and computer labs for young minds. So these were really awesome, great thought out properties. And I wish I could talk about them being built today.
I agree with the communication standpoint. There's a project over there off of Eastland that some neighbors started coming around, hey, this project's going through. No, not really, haven't, heard about what's going on. They were pretty adamant about, hey, we'd like to, see what it is, see what's going on. Does it affect our property values? Because in Camdenton right now, they're doing the same thing. There's a project, they're wanting to put up all these housing units in the side of the city, and it will block off a subdivision and elderly where people live in subdivision. And they came back and the study said it decreased our property value by 20% here, the water runoff here, and they had a list, so they had their ducks in a row. And to come to find out that the developer, they would really like to have been talked to. The simple thing, hey, what's going on here? Will it affect me? Do we have adequate ways in and out? The first thing, unfortunately, I had a nice Columbus meeting, wasn't at the city council meeting for, but one thing I saw right off the bat, what I looked at is one way in, which is Miller Street. It dead ends all up there, but it comes by Farm Credit Service. There's one way in, one way out. You got Woodland Apartments coming out, 50 coming down at the stoplight. So was there a traffic thing there? Maybe say, how many cars would be going? And then was there a back way from Timber that's dead ends that the city could have maybe brought in with that developer to do that? 2 ways in, 2 ways out, less traffic, a little bit, spread it out.
Time's up.
Thank you.
Could you repeat the question again, please?
Sure. The city of Jefferson has a reputation and recent track record demonstrating missed opportunities when it comes to increased affordable or workforce housing in our community. How do we become a city that is interested in growing in ways that benefit the entire community, not just self-interest? In other words, how do we eliminate the not in my backyard attitude? So what happened in the past with proposed development doesn't happen again.
Well, I would agree with the answer to education and communication. And Aaron, I appreciate you sharing those letters of support because I also submitted letters of support for 2 of these projects. I was reached out to a developer. We had a good communication as far as what was going on. I also had really good conversations with people from in this room. I would even say, I'm not going to name names, but from nonprofits, from realtors, from economic developers. You name it. I was people that understood MHDC tax credits, all of these. And so that's when I came to conclude like these are great projects. And the restrictions on these projects were more advanced than what a normal probably developer or property owner had. So, I can't speak for others with it, but I just know for me and what I supported and what I wrote letters of support for. So, I mean, out of the 115, I think projects that were submitted, 111 of them came from Jefferson City. There was 150 letters of opposition. If you take all the 111 that weren't in this community, they got very minimal opposition.
Well, I think put in the same position, many or most of us in this room would use the not my backyard argument as at least a first response to something. And then that's where education and a community spirit, a community knowledge comes into play. It is a defense, but it's not the only one. And we as a community need to figure out how we address that issue. I spent a lot of time at the Capitol. I've won issues there and I've lost issues there. When I lose an issue, I try to take a look at myself and do some internal, what did I do wrong? Sometimes you can blame the system. It just didn't work. It just wasn't the right time for that issue. Sometimes I didn't do the things I needed to do, educate legislators as to what I was trying to. Well, anyway, I just go.
Thank you, man. Mark.
I'm across real fast. First thing I want to say is the third part of the question, was we have a reputation for missed opportunities. I want to stop there and say, our organization combined with Missouri Primary Care Association has been trying to put a $13 million building at MSP for a year and a half now. And so I don't know if it's missed opportunities, if it's a lack of due diligence or a lack of leadership in the city. I don't know what it is, but for us not to be, we have money in hand from the federal government to do this. Is as far as NIMBY goes, I think anytime you use a government incentive, you have to put the power into the people's hands in the area in which you're going to develop these programs. We have a situation on Lafayette Street right now that use these rezoning things that we've all been talking about, take 4 housing plots and turn it into 10 or 11, or building nice quality homes. And without having the folks speak on it, you now have a group of folks that are upset, not because low-income housing is going in their area, they're upset because high-income housing are going in their area. Their fear is an increase in the valuation that will increase their property taxes. So we have a unique argument ahead of us, not just on the low-income side, but where any of these projects go. So I don't think it's just not in my backyard because of low-income housing. I think it's not in my backyard for anybody until we figure out and give the people the power to speak on it.
I think the leadership needs to take in mind the aspect of the whole community. Because it doesn't matter if the night in my backyard people, what they say, if there is no backyard because Jeff City is dying. So in order to support growth in Jefferson City, leadership needs to stop showing favoritism, look at what the data shows, look at what the community needs, and take action. The affordable housing is not just low-income housing, it's a multi-scale of income. So there is low income, there is middle class, and there is high income apartments that were being established in a mixed area. So it wasn't just low income housing. It's not just ghettos being put here, here, and here in your backyard. No, that's not what it is. It's workforce housing, and it's needed. It's needed, period, because we are dying. Jefferson City is dying. So people have got to get over their feelings, and leadership has got to be accountable. There was plenty of time to read over and review all the stuff that was proposed because we knew the money was there way back almost a year ago. So I think that everything needs to be reconsidered, and I hope those developers will come back to the table.
Okay, missed opportunity. I think that's a great way of coining this whole situation, because it was an opportunity that we missed out on. We missed out on millions of dollars in this community, opportunity for growth in this community for both the constituents and the businesses. We missed out. Call it what it is. We missed out. And I think one of the things why we missed out is because decisions were made on emotions and lack of education. If they had looked at that list and read that list, they would have known what the people who they're supposed to serve were doing. And they would have been educated on. If they had looked at that list, they could have contacted organizations. I was right there in Habitat for Humanity on the board while we were trying to get our thoughts and our experts. We're the experts. Why didn't you come to us? Well, you have the experts right here in this community. You could have come to help you make a decision. Moving forward, I think that we need to hear stories, success stories of where affordable housing has not only made it in this community, but other communities. Right here in Jeff Cities, I've been door knocking and over on Shell Ridge in my ward. They told me a success story of a multi-family unit that has enhanced the other houses in the community. So if you want to say lack of education, no, you had all opportunities to find out. And moving forward, I think we need to rely upon the opinions of our constituents of which we serve to lead us and not our own emotions.
Yeah, I started.
Okay. All right, so that ends all of our planning questions. We just have a couple minutes, so we're not gonna get to all the questions that were asked by the group. So we're gonna compile an email and send them to each candidate. If you could reply to the email with answers, I'm not sure who it's gonna come from. From Gary at the chamber. Great. He will compile the questions that the attendees have. So we'll go through a quick couple questions here. Should the city provide an incentive specifically for local investors aimed at providing help in building multifamily workforce housing? And how can we get the county involved also? Ron, we'll start with you. Let's keep it to a minute.
Yes, I think that's an opportunity for the city to work. And, I think, again, if you look at the housing study, there are a number of things talked about in there, the partnerships between some businesses and the city and being able to provide. I think what we're looking toward long-term is home ownership. So whether it's help with down payments or help with getting into those homes, help in getting those projects and doing it in a cooperative adventure. So I think, again, everything is on the table and we need to look at all options to build this city.
Mark? Should the city provide an incentive specifically for local investors aimed at providing help in building multifamilies or workforce housing? How can we get the county involved also?
I think any incentive is good, but somebody's got to pay for it. And so, the study specifically talked about for profit in combination with multiple different agencies on the federal and state level, whether you're talking about community development block grants, NDHC, and even our local state departments. I think incentives are great, but at the end of the day, an incentive that revolves around loan forgiveness or anything else like that has to be paid for by somebody. So that would be number one, who's going to pay for it?
Yes, I believe there should be incentives and just to piggyback off what Mark was saying, there already are federal dollars that come to state that do incentives like community development block grant that gives you first time home buyers assistance and things like that. So I think that it would be on the goal, the plate for city council to look at what other federal incentives that could be provided for a grant that the city itself would have to take on the responsibility of where that incentive would come from.
Yes, I think we need to look at incentives. We need to give those agencies who are willing to bring people here to work in our community an incentive. And that incentive should lead to home ownership. But my view is we need to give people a chance. Everybody with that incentive, that will give them some kind of baseline to give these people to trajectory up. And what will they do? They'll stay here in Jeff City if they can buy here in Jeff City. So yes, I think we should give the incentive. Yeah, money have to come from somewhere, but we're talking about this money that HBC is wanting to give us. We can put a line category in that to allocate out to incentivize our agencies. Yes.
Absolutely, all funding options should be on the table. I think we also ought to be looking at establishing public-private partnerships we have a lot of industry presence in Jefferson City. And, you know, if industry is having challenges, they can come to the table and say, we're gonna have some financial commitment into it as well. So having an internal, establishing a, you know, a housing finance agency, a JPA, I think those are great options that we can utilize to fund. And really also, if you guys want to go to my Facebook page, yesterday I wrote in detail the housing issue that I see and some solutions to that. So I think that opportunities will be a fair reflection of where I stand on this issue as well. So that's my personal finance, Facebook page and also my campaign, JC Third Ward Facebook page. Well, not my finance page. Don't go to that.
I don't disagree with what the upper chamber here said, and, but I still contend, where's the money gonna come from?
Aaron?
You know, I think there's a number of things we incentivize in our community with business. I mean, I don't think housing should certainly be excluded from that. I agree with a number of things that have been said, like Alicia's point. Partnerships, I think, are big. In volunteerism that I do throughout our community, when two groups come together to make something even better, it always is making me smile, you know. And I'd love to see our partnerships from our local organizations, maybe even with the city. And so I think there's ways to get those done.
Yeah, I would look at the public, private partnerships too, because at one time where Riverside Park was their old Ren's edition, that was getting back to the International Street Company and all that, was set up to help their people that work there to live and be close by to work. So I'm sure we brought with the mayor's leadership and all that coming in, that if we could sit down with Apache and everybody say, okay, we understand there's a need. So give us your ideas. What do you think about a public partnership and all that? Tax abatements, whatever it takes to get it going, I'm all for, but on the tax abatement side, you have to look at the school districts, what they make, and see, are they in on this too? Are we all pro Jeff City? Are we all on board? And the communication, education part of that is, it's all worth looking for. I mean, throw the ideas out there that, we're all grown people. We can all sit there and debate amongst ourselves what it is. And then move on from there and make Jeff City great.
David?
Yeah, I agree. I think conditions, I would support it, and just like this is with industries, I think we also need to expand to other counties. When you look at the majority of our workforce is coming from outside of the city, Lynn is putting up housing left and right. And we look in California. I mean, I think the discussions with them to say like, hey, how can we partner together? I think you even talk to city staff and the Lake of the Ozarks even reached out and say, hey, how can we partner together to bring housing? Because it's not just the Jefferson City area, it's the region that we need to support. So for Hitachi and all these other industries, I think they're looking for affordable housing within Minnesota. So I think all these come into play.
Okay, that's all the time we have for questions, but I'd like to give each candidate about 30 seconds for a closing statement. And Ron, we'll start with you.
Thank you.
Well, again, thanks for hosting this. It's a privilege to serve on city council here in Jefferson City and represent individuals in this community. I look forward to the opportunity to continue to serve four individuals here at the table I'll be working with. We've got returning council members. We obviously have some challenges moving forward, but it's an exciting place and I look forward to those challenges. Thanks.
Yeah, just to echo Ron, I want to thank everybody for the opportunity. It's a unique chance to get a diverse group of people here to talk about, one of the most pressing things in front of our city. So thank you very much. There's multiple ways you can reach me: email, Facebook, text. If you have any follow-up questions or anything like that, I look forward to talking to you.
Thank you for allowing me to be here and share with you today. I just want to say that everyone knows what the issues are and everyone knows what's going on. And as you go back to your workplace and your community, they live in your ward or don't live in your ward, just make the right choice when you go to vote, because what the council is a reflection of the city. And so it needs to be diverse. There needs to be different opinions there, and there needs to be change. So.
Good.
Of course, I want to thank you all for having me here today. And As Alicia said, I think representation, the board, the city council, at least the city, it should represent those in which it leads. It does not do that. I hope that when on April 4th, that you vote for diversity in this community, that you vote for a different mindset in this community, and that you vote for experience in this community. And I am a candidate for the 3rd ward seat, and I hope that you vote.
Thank you again for allowing us to be here today. I'm on the 3rd Ward City Council. I've sat on that council seat for 2 years. I do have the experience and the dedication and the commitment and the passion with our community. And I think experience does matter. And I think I have that experience moving forward. So again, thank you for your time today. I look forward to hearing from you to bring possible solutions in the future.
Thanks to the chamber and to the realtors and to the builders for inviting us out today. It's been a very interesting morning and afternoon, and I learned a lot today that maybe missed because I'm just an average citizen who tries to pay attention, and a very learning experience. I bring to the table institutional knowledge, historical significance of the area, and previous experience on the city council. Maybe it's a long time ago, but you don't forget it. And Jefferson City is my home, and I would encourage you to just talk of the situation of voting.
Time.
Go out and vote, get the people to vote.
Aaron.
Yeah, well.
Again, I want to echo the thanks. I really appreciate this conversation. I think whether I was a city council candidate or not, I would really enjoy the conversation. You know, I guess it's one-sided. I would prefer that we were all talking to each other, but again, thank you. You know, I want to serve Jefferson City with educated decisions and thoughtful decision making. I think there's a reasonable factor to city council. We need leaders who can work together. I know a lot of our community. I work well with a bunch of people, and I thank you for having me.
I just want to say thank you to Mr. Plummer, the chamber, to the realtors and the developers that are all here, the home builders and all that here. Lived on the east side for 33 years. Covington House was a little big city. But I love where I live. I love that I've raised my family. We go to Macklin at 7:30. I love serving on the committees that I did serve on. It is a great place to raise a family. The task before us is big, but the elect the people that you think are going to move it forward. It's a good, I think you see the passion we have here, so I look forward to your vote. Thank you.
And I'll keep it brief. I mean, I'm up for my final term, and I appreciate you allowing me to come and share. I mean, I track record, I supported housing. I know that there's a lot of people in this room that I've had good conversations with as far as housing, and I'd like to continue to keep that going.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thanks to the HBA, Jefferson City Board of Realtors, the chamber, and especially the candidates for taking time out of their day to come and discuss these important issues with us. Don't forget to vote on April 4th. And we're